Welcome everybody to another amazing AMA Boston webinar series with WSI. Welcome Vineesh and Peter. We'll let you guys introduce yourselves in just a moment. But thanks to our members for joining today and our special guests as well. Don't forget to check out our website for more events this month. We have 2 more coming up. We'll tell you a little more about those at the end, but we have a networking event with a special guest, Scott Braun from the CMO of Drizzly, the alcohol e-commerce Boston-based company. So that'll be really fun. You also get a little coupon code if you attend the event on your next Drizzly order. So that's kind of a fun perk. And then at the end of the month, we have a fireside chat with the chairman of Dunkin' Brands. America runs on Dunkin'. We'll be peeling back some of that brand and its story, as well as Nigel's experience in the market. So without further ado, I want to hand it over to Peter, and we'll circle back at the end with a few final housekeeping things.
Sure. Well, I think we have some, hold on. Do you want to go over this, Meg?
Yeah, I kind of ad hoc'd it, but this is just a glance at what our normal programming looks like. And like I said, we'll touch base on that again at the end so that you don't forget. And also we'll pop some details into the chat. Also, thanks, Peter. This prompted me to remind everyone to throw your information in the chat. We like to connect with each other. You know, if you want to put your LinkedIn link on there or talk about who you are a little bit, we like to get to know you. And I guess also, since it's on the screen, I'll mention that AMA Boston membership is reduced price this year, and that's going to stick. So we fought hard to get that price down so we could have more people in our community consider joining us. It's a great community, and it's really good marketing support during the virtual working world. I think, you know, we're continuing to stay connected and have fun, enriching events. So, all right, Peter, back over to you now.
Oh, you got one more. This is well, I could do.
Really fly by this one. This is just a look at our board of directors. If you want to reach out to us, you can feel free to join one of these teams. We have a lot of open volunteering positions. It's a great way to network, a good excuse to meet really cool marketers and test out some new skills. So message me for sure after this if you want to connect on that.
And just some housekeeping rules. Please keep your mics muted during the event so we don't hear any feedback. You can post questions in the chat. We'll also be using Menti, and you can add questions directly there, and we'll present them to the whole audience, and you can upvote those questions. All of our meetings are recorded so that we can show them for people that weren't able to attend this meeting. And make sure we send out a survey after the event. And we want to hear your feedback so we can improve our different events and you know, to basically bring you better content. So today, my name is Peter Berson. I am principal owner of Aveli by WSI, which is a WSI World franchise. WSI has been around for 25 years, taking people from all walks of life and bringing them into the WSI network as digital marketers. We operate in 87 countries. We're about 1,500 owners, helping all different types of companies, from brands such as like Coca-Cola and Salesforce and SunSuite, to even smaller companies, which could be local people like a painter or a roofer in the local area, or law firms. So we cover all walks of marketing for all different types of businesses. Vineesh is one of my strategic partners that I work with a lot, and he has an immense amount of experience with programmatic advertising, SEO. Vineesh, why don't you chime in a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks a lot, Peter. And I believe this is the third webinar in a series of webinars that we are very proud to associate with AMA Boston. Meg, thanks for all your cooperation. It's been a terrific experience presenting to the audience. Very engaged audience so far, and there's some pretty interesting questions and some interesting engagements that have come about as far as these webinars are concerned. So I really appreciate all your support there. A bit about my background. I've been doing digital marketing for the past close to like at least 16 years now. It's been an amazing ride. Just focused on different aspects of digital marketing in the different parts of my career. I'd like to call myself a T-shaped marketer with a broad range of expertise and experience in a lot of different verticals, and specializing in a couple of verticals. That's a passion of mine. Love digital for the dynamic aspect of it. There's just so many things that are happening, and things change on the day. So you really have to keep yourself educated and in the front end of things at all times. Keeps you on your toes. So that's the exciting aspect with digital. Very happy to present today's topic with Peter on programmatic advertising, because programmatic fundamentally has overall impacted the digital landscape quite extensively in the past few years, and it's really going to get more and more sophisticated, and it's going to get better. So for the audience that's signing on for this webinar today, we're going to try and dump down the session today and try and make it more sort of like an introductory session to programmatic advertising. So we're not going to be covering a lot of the advanced topics in this session today, just because you want to make sure that everybody that's logged on today has a really good understanding, a fundamental level of understanding as far as programmatic is concerned, and all the aspects that go into programmatic. And then based on demand, if there's interest in a more sort of like an advanced session, we are totally happy to do that. Over to you, Peter.
Yeah, so today, one of the things we did during our last webinar, and we've improved it a little bit on this, a lot on this webinar, is we're using a program called Menti, menti.com. So if you grab your phone and you scan in either the QR code or go to www.menti.com, you will see a screen like that. You type in that code, and then we'll have a nice interactive session where we will be able to see live in the presentation questions that we ask you. And this way, to keep our audience engaged and basically have a more interactive experience. So if you guys jump on that now, we'll be going over to our first question to just get you guys a feel of what it's like. And then we'll be using this during the different parts of the presentation. So I'm going to bring up our first question. So if you jumped on, you'll see a question. What new skill did you learn during the COVID/lockdown? You can vote up to 3 times. And let's see what people have been doing. Because I know I've learned some new skills. One of the, I would say, let's see what we got. How many people we have? Oh, there we go. All right, now it's coming in. Cleaning my own space. Yeah, a lot of time for cleanup. Yeah, I think we've all becoming good at Zoom. Masters of Zoom. Hootsuite, that's in the, social media sharing, mask wearing, that's a really good one. Yeah, improving WordPress. I love WordPress. But it's funny, every plugin and every theme, you always learn a new thing. That's great. We'll move on to the next question. So here's one that's more focused a little bit on our topic, is what type of paid media do you use today? And this is, again, a word cloud, so you can put in anything from, maybe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, to, Facebook ads, but share with us kind of what you're using today in terms of paid advertising. Or Instagram. Yeah, Instagram's a very interesting, it's an evolving platform. And I think it's working pretty well. And Google Ads, search and display. Great, not Facebook. Social is a more generic topic. LinkedIn ads, yes, a little bit more, sometimes a little bit more costly, but a better targeted audience. Mediaship partnerships. You know, that's a good way too. I mean, I know that some of the Instagram accounts, you can pay a certain amount of money and they'll repost your content. So that's a really great way of partnering with somebody who has a lot of followers on Instagram or platforms like that. You know, a couple for, you know, Instagram. No, 3. They're just great. I think we'll come back to the next question because I want to make sure we explain a little bit more about programmatic before we ask that one. So yeah, I'll go over this. Basically, we're going to go a quick slide kind of about what we do, and then we're going to jump right into programmatic advertising and explain that. Like Vineesh said, in a simple term, we're not going to go deep into it, but be able to give you the understanding of what it is and how to use it. And then data projections, and then follow up with questions and answers. And you should be able to, if I've done it right, you can ask a question inside the Menti app at any point in time. And then at the end, we will display those questions and answer them for you. So Vineesh, you want to run through this slide?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So in terms of areas of expertise, I'd say our core is SEO, paid search. Programmatic's been an area of focus, I'd say, for the past few years, just because it's really caught mainstream. And programmatic initially was sort of like a very expensive entry point or a price point for some of the solutions and platforms that you wanted to get access to. And one of the shifts that we've seen in the past couple of years is that it's gotten a lot more affordable. So you don't necessarily need to be an enterprise level organization having big budgets in order to really extend the benefits of programmatic and add that to your overall marketing stack or the tactical approaches that you're utilizing for your goals. It's a lot more affordable now. And as it's got more affordable, we've seen that the adoption for programmatic has been also quite more widespread based on the fact that it's gotten more affordable. Of course, you have the big enterprise or large enterprise organizations, as well as a lot of the larger digital agencies like the WPPs of the world that are doing some pretty massive spends on the programmatic side. So that has always been the case, and that's really what led to the advent and increase of programmatic adoption. But the fact that now it's a lot more affordable is just only increased the adoption for programmatic in the past few years. Great, so let's dive right in. So let's talk a little bit about the history of programmatic. So before programmatic really came in and everything started to get automated, a lot of you might have watched Mad Men or might be fans of that show. You can kind of see like how the negotiations and media buying was being done in back in the day, and it's like the show's like a perfect epitome of how negotiations were happening and how traditional media buying was being done. It was very sort of like old school. You sit in your big oak table, your desk, and you sit down there, prop your legs up, you start making some calls, you start hustling, and you're starting to like negotiate media, you're starting to like negotiate with different parties. May the best man win sort of an approach, a lot of sneakiness going on, not a lot of transparency. It's almost like sort of like a little media buying mafia that was like there, with these ad executives, Madison Avenue, controlling a lot of this inventory, negotiating pricing. So that's kind of like how the history was, where you had this really amazing channel, tactic, lead source, whatever you want to call it. And there wasn't a lot of transparency. It was a lot of human to human interaction. The time to market was, slow. It took its own time. You had to like focus on creatives, develop, deploy the creatives, do strategic meetings. And again, all of this was being done face to face, a lot of human to human interaction, get on the phone, negotiate the buys, then go ahead and implement the buys, execute the buys. So it was very, very traditional, and there was a lot of human to human interaction that was taking place. Obviously, as the internet caught on. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Peter. You want to add something?
Well, so I just wanted to highlight or ask a quick question. I mean, we're talking like pre-internet, like getting ads on Time magazine or potentially radio or TV, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And even when the internet did start, I mean, media buying was it was a sort of like a very manual process. So I'd say from the mid 90s to even the early 2000s, media buying was all about a lot of manual work. You had to go out there, you had to curate sites that were of interest as far as your particular campaign was concerned. And then you had to go in, you had to negotiate the buys one-on-one with, so you had essentially the media buyer on one side, and then you had the publisher on the other side that had the inventory that was available. So there was a lot of negotiation that would happen with the media buyer and the publishing entity in order to agree upon a price and then place the advertising in that particular publication. So even as early as the early part of the 2000s, right up to 2006-07, I mean, it was a lot of human-to-human interaction that was essentially taking place. It wasn't an automated process as we have it today. And that's really what, as the market got more and more sophisticated, the need for more automation as far as programmatic was concerned and more sophistication as far as programmatic was concerned was really born, because this traditional model wasn't really serving the needs, either in the case of transparency or in the case of overall efficiency of the process. So there was definitely a need in the market, and that's really how programmatic was born and sort of like took off from there. So that's kind of like the background as far as programmatic is concerned. So let's try and really understand a base level as to what are the different components and the key components of programmatic advertising. Now we have a few slides that are going to address this. So I'm going to try and start the conversation or start the discussion with explaining the basic blocks of programmatic advertising. And as we go into the different slides, you'll start to see a little more of a visual representation as far as these different areas are concerned, so that we can discuss these a bit more. So in this graphic, as you can see, there's basically two sides that we're looking at. On the left side, you have the advertiser. So the advertiser is somebody that has the money, they have the need, they have the demand, and they essentially want to go out there and place advertising to achieve whatever goals that they have set and established for themselves. And on the right side of the spectrum, you have the publisher. So the publisher is a party that controls the inventory. They have the inventory available. They need to come together with the advertiser in order to negotiate a price and a fair price for everybody, and essentially put the ad, deploy the ad, make it go live. So there's essentially these two entities that you have, the advertiser and the publisher. As mentioned to you in the past, the advertiser and the publisher entities were really connecting very manually. It was a manual process. Everything was being done over the phone, handshakes, meetings, and that's how this buying and selling of inventory was taking place. And then over the course of the evolution of programmatic advertising, what's happened is that it's gotten definitely very, very sophisticated. And there's basically two pieces to the equation that have been added on in order to bring this level of sophistication and this level of transparency when it comes to programmatic advertising. So the two pieces are an ad server and a platform. So you basically have an ad server on the advertiser side, and you have an ad server on the publisher side. Then you have something called a platform, which is the platform essentially is either a demand side platform that's on the advertiser end, and then you have a supply side platform, which is on the supplier side. Both these platforms serve as different functions. So you have the ad server on the advertiser side that is really responsible for ad delivery. The reason for deploying an ad server in this overall mix is to ensure that whatever you're paying for is actually being delivered. So the ad server is your choice, you the advertiser, so it's your choice to deploy your technology, your ad server, and there's a lot of different choices out there that you can deploy. So you choose which ad server you want to utilize in order to deliver your ads. And what that does, this intermediary ad server, is that it basically controls all of this inventory, this delivery of ads that you have, and the level of transparency is built in because you can actually see how the impressions are getting served, how the different metrics are performing, and there's this level of transparency that's built in, so you know you're essentially getting what you're paying for. So that's really the core function of the ad server, of course, serving ads and deploying ads as well. And then with the ad serving technology, you have something called the demand side platform. What the demand side platform essentially is that it's bidding for media that's available from the suppliers, from the publishers, and it's optimizing. So the demand side platform's job is to get you the inventory that you're looking for based on the targeting needs that you've set up and established at the best possible price. So it's essentially serving your needs, the advertiser, and you can configure these parameters that you want to make sure that the demand side platform is really serving your needs and your interests. The demand side platform is connected centrally to something called an ad exchange. And an ad exchange is really what brings the advertisers and the publishers together. It's kind of like you can kind of like call it the the stock market ticker. So you have the stock market, and then you have the symbols and all of the stuff that's going on over there, the trading floor. So the ad exchange is kind of like the trading floor, where you have the advertisers and the publishers that are essentially coming together. And the ad exchange is really where this auction, this real-time auction of inventory, is taking place. So just like the advertisers have an ad server and a demand side platform, in order to control the publisher interests, that's publishers that have the inventory available on their websites, on their portals, they have a publisher ad server, and then they have a supply side platform. Just very similar to how you have the advertising side platform, the supply side platform makes sure that the publisher's interest is getting maximized so that they are getting the most that they can out of the inventory that's available, that's being offered on the supply side platform, and getting connected with the ad exchange. So the supply side platform's job is to make sure that that is essentially being maxed out. And then all of these things also have connections with data providers based on targeting. So whether it's contextual targeting, audience level targeting, hyperlocal targeting, all of these different aspects are all fed into this overall machine that we're looking at as far as programmatic is concerned. Now you'll see in the next few slides that it seems complicated because there's so many moving parts to programmatic and how this whole thing functions. But the best part is that all of this is happening literally in microseconds, this entire process. So with a blink of an eye, you'll see an ad on CNN or wherever you are, whichever website you are, and you'll see the impression being delivered. And behind the scenes, here's all of this stuff that's gone on, and you don't even literally like see any sort of a time lag or a delay. So this entire process is literally happening in milliseconds, and the ads getting served. So the next few slides are really going to talk about this a little bit more in depth so that it's a lot clearer. So let's talk about the life of an impression. So for people that don't understand what an impression is, every time you load up a page on a website, that's essentially an impression. So you'll see ads being served when you're loading up the page. You'll see content obviously being served up for that particular page. And that's really what an impression is. And
Vineesh, you want me to load the next slide?
Yeah, I think it's probably a little more visual. I think that might be a little better.
Well, no, on the question, the Menti slide.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Go ahead. Yeah, let's do that. It's a good time.
So we just want to get a gear of the audience to determine, basically, have you used programmatic advertising campaigns currently, in the past, or never? So it's good. So we have some people that are familiar with it on the call, it looks like, but it seems like nobody's currently using it. But, and it seems like, it's good that we're keeping it as high level, because it seems like people need to understand the benefits a little bit more about that. I'll give it another, 20 seconds. We have about 20 plus people on the call. You only got 8 response. We can do better than this.
Right.
Grab that phone. It's okay. Oh, all this data, by the way, maybe that's all. It's all anonymous. We don't know who's actually submitting the answers. So if that's your concern.
That's great, though. That's interesting. There's definitely a lot of the nevers or in the past. So hopefully the content's of interest for you guys.
Right. So let's move on.
All right, perfect. Thanks a lot, Peter. So what we were essentially discussing was the life of an impression. So an impression is a banner ad or a display ad or a native ad. There's different types of ads that you can deploy as far as programmatic advertising is concerned. So every time that you're serving up a page, you hit refresh in your browser, there's essentially an impression that's being served. So the way that an impression works is that, let's say a user visits your website where there's an ad space that needs to be filled. So this ad space could be a banner at the top of the website. It could be, which is called a leaderboard. It could be a skyscraper banner, a 120 by 600, a common sizes, 728 by 90. So it could be all of these different types of spaces that are available on a website where inventory needs to be filled up. So the ad space waiting to be filled, this ad space is managed by the publisher's ad server that's collecting signals about this visit. Because remember, as an advertiser, you can control who's seeing your ads, how your demand's being filled. So what happens is that once the impression's ready to be served based on all of the information that's being gathered for this particular visitor that's on the page, all the signals are being sent across to the publisher's ad server. The supply side platform at the same time is collecting the impression, it's bundling it with all of the different other signals that are important, and it offers this particular ad impression that's available from the publisher, the supplier side, to the ad exchange. As we know, we talked about the fact that the advertisers are deploying the demand side platforms, so they have this opportunity real time to bid on this impression that's being made available by the publisher. Right, so let's say, let's talk about, let's say the AMA website. So let's say there's advertising that's available on the AMA website. So they have inventory that's available. So what happens is that I am an advertiser and I want to make sure that my ad's getting served up in the AMA website. The AMA website's supply side platforms are going to communicate with the ad server, and it's going to essentially tell them, look, we have this impression that's available. The visitor comes onto the website, it meets the criteria that I'm looking for, and now I have the opportunity to bid on this particular impression that needs to be served for this visitor. That's through the demand side platform. An auction's taking place real time, where my need for that impression, because I want to make sure that this visitor that's coming onto the website is seeing my ad, so I need that impression, and I'm willing to pay a certain amount of money for it. And then on the other side, the publisher wants to fill this for the best possible price. So I'm not the only advertiser that's competing for that inventory. There's other advertisers that are also looking for this visitor to see their ad. So you have this real-time auction that's taking place. Everything's happening literally in milliseconds. Depending on the outcome of this auction, whoever the winner of this auction is, because there's several advertisers that are bidding for this particular impression that is available, then that particular advertiser's impression gets served. So that's the life of an impression as to how it originates and how this whole thing's getting served. So a little bit of a more sort of like a visual understanding. So you have a visitor or a user that's visiting a website. The website then communicates with the ad exchange, the supply side providers. The supply side providers are offering the information to the demand side platforms that, hey, look, I have this inventory that's available. Are you guys interested? And this is the type of a visitor profile that's about to see your ad. So are you interested? And then the advertisers place their bids through a demand side platform. They say, yes, we're interested, and here's how much we're willing to pay you for this particular impression. And then whoever has the highest bid essentially wins that ad spot, that particular impression. And remember, there's billions and billions and billions of impressions that are being serviced as
Vineesh,
our interface is concerned. Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah. So basically what you're telling me is a person that's on their website that just before it's ready to serve an ad, they're supplying information like demographics
Yep.
to the other side to say, go find an ad that would meet this. And what type
That's
of
right.
demographics are they providing?
Oh, there's like, I mean, depends on how sophisticated the network is, but there's like hundreds of different data points that are being collected, whether it's your operating system, your browser, your location, of course, what type of device you're utilizing. So there's a ton of data points that are being gathered as far as that particular visitor is concerned. And all of these data points are then being fed into the server so as to let the advertisers know and the publishers also know that there's this type of a visitor that's coming on board. What do you have available for them? And then the advertisers essentially are bidding on for that inventory.
Right.
And they're not doing this physically. It's all happening real time.
Right.
It's all systematized, all automated.
And I was hearing one of the platforms can have data like household income or the cost of a house for a zip code, and they know exactly where this person is visiting from, and
Absolutely.
they're providing information like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, programmatic's getting the aspects of programmatic, especially when it relates to geolocalization, geo-targeting, are getting very, very sophisticated. So for example, let's say that if you wanted to target people in a trade show, in a particular trade show, you could literally be targeting these people that are either attending the trade show or let's say in the vicinity, a certain vicinity or a certain radius around the location where the trade show is taking place, the venue. So you could be hyper local. There's been some pretty successful campaigns that have been run in universities. So for example, let's say that there's a university event that's taking place at the varsity stadium, and you want to target people that are actually attending that event in that stadium. You can actually do programmatic advertising just for them. So as they're in the stadium enjoying the event, they're actually looking at your ads that are getting served to them on their devices. So you can get pretty granular and very sophisticated with programmatic. Now, of course, as the more sophisticated and granular that you get, the lesser the inventory that's available, and the lesser the inventory that's available, the higher the price, obviously depending on the demand. So if there's a lot of people, let's say there's an event in Boston University's stadium, and there's a lot of demand for it. Inventory is limited because there's only X amount of people and inventory available to serve your ads, and the auction's going to make the bids more expensive. But if there isn't as much inventory, then you benefit because then you're getting all of that inventory at a pretty low cost. So one of the things that a lot of the advertisers right now might also be experiencing is the fact that the programmatic costs, depending on what sort of sites and what sort of channels you want to advertise on, are going up slightly, and in certain instances by quite a bit. And that's primarily because the US elections are coming up. November 3rd is a big day for you guys, of course. And what's happening is that there's a lot of media buying, a lot of programmatic advertising, a lot of programmatic buys that are taking place right now, from now till the end of the month. There's a lot of money that's being poured into programmatic, and that's pushing up the bids in certain genres or certain areas that you want to advertise on. And that's like political websites, influential websites, swing vote oriented websites. Now these are sites that are definitely experiencing an increase in the costs, primarily because of the demand being so extremely high. So now we actually go into a little bit more on the two units that we talked about, the DSP and the SSP. So on the demand side, from the advertiser side, you have the demand side platform. And then on the supplier side, you have the supplier side platform. And in between, you have the connection that's essentially being made by the centralized ad exchange. So that's where all of the communication of the DSP and the SSP is taking place. And then there's real-time bidding happening as far as the inventory is concerned. And then your ad is essentially getting serviced. As mentioned before, the benefit of using a DSP and an SSP is to really take care of your interests. So the DSP takes care of the advertiser's interests because you can do a lot of a whole different layers of targeting. To your point, Peter, there's a ton of targeting that you can essentially do as an advertiser. So you can really pick and choose the type of inventory that you're looking for. And then the same thing on the supply side platform. The SSP really takes care of the publisher's interests. So they can program it in terms of the amount of inventory available, the types of pages available, the type of content that they have available. So all of that gets deployed on the SSP side. And once all of this information is gathered, you're collected together, this information then gets served up, and there's this real-time auction that's taking place at the ad exchange, and the winner gets their impression served for that particular visitor. So that's kind of like how this whole operation is working. Seems complicated, but if you really have to sort of like break it down, you have the advertiser's publisher, their interests being served by their own mini platforms, the DSP and the SSP, and the DSP SSP essentially connecting with an ad exchange in the center that brings both the parties together, and that's where the inventory bidding is taking place. As mentioned, all of this is automated, so you don't have to go out there looking for DSPs or SSPs. There's some pretty established players in the market that have quite a bit of a reputation, and a lot of clients, advertisers, and on the publisher side essentially go with these particular platforms that are out there. So we talked about the DSP and the SSP. Peter, can we move on to the next one?
Yep.
All right, perfect. What are the benefits? Let's talk about some of the benefits as far as programmatic is concerned. So one of the benefits of programmatic is the fact that when you're looking at the type of advertising that you want to deploy, is that you're essentially looking at either a multi-channel experience where you have a lot of channels that are available to you as an advertiser, but they're not necessarily integrated together. So what that integration talks about is that they're not connecting with each other, they're not talking to each other. So there's advertising that's taking place, but it's taking place in blocks, in silos. So when you're talking about a multi-channel experience, which is what a lot of the traditional advertising gives you, you're either doing in-store advertising, or you're just doing web-based advertising, you're just doing social, or you're just doing mobile. The benefit with programmatic advertising is the fact that you're doing omni-channel marketing efforts with programmatic. What that means is that you can tailor the experience of the visitor across the different platforms that they're having an exposure in. So you can program things like, okay, if somebody visits the store, you get their information, you feed that into the programmatic platform. I want this person seeing my ad on the internet X number of times a day. So you can also control the frequency of that ad being displayed. So you can start creating lists even in programmatic. So for example, you'll have a list of people that visited, let's say, a physical store. You get their email address, you get some information that's associated with them, you feed that into the platform, and then you start programming how you want that platform to be interacting with this person. So you talk about things like time of day. You can do day parting as far as programmatic is concerned. You can do we can do frequency capping. So this person sees the ad X amount of times. There's a lot of things that you can essentially program. And that's really where this whole omni-channel experience comes in. You can then target them on social, because you also have programmatic advertising that's available on the social networks, and cross-device targeting. And that's really what makes programmatic so sophisticated and such an amazing tool that in a digital marketer's arsenal, is because as opposed to that multi-channel experience, which isn't very connected from a visitor standpoint, you're now moving to this really amazing fully integrated omni-channel experience, the way you can control the visitor experience by controlling all of the different touch points and all of these different attributes that are available to you. So some of the differences, if we talk about traditional versus programmatic, we touched about traditional right at the beginning of this webinar. So some of the core differences that we talked about were the fact that when you're looking at traditional media buying efforts, everything's done manually. So you don't have anything on the demand side, you don't have anything on the supply side. You have media buyers that are interacting with media buyers on the other side. The two parties come together, and there's a lot of manual negotiation that's taking place. Whereas with the help of programmatic, that's all been eliminated. All of the ads are being bought and sold in an automated manner. There is no or very little human intervention that's happening. All of this stuff is happening real time, and there's a whole bunch of transparency that's put into play. On the traditional side, again, the manual process involves, especially when you're talking about big money, there's a lot of stuff like salespeople, change orders, RFP processes. So there's a whole bunch of the manual stuff and a lot of paperwork that was happening in the past as far as media buying was concerned. And then when you're looking at programmatic, you can literally be launching a campaign in the next couple of hours, if that is really what the need is. Forget a couple of hours, you can be launching a campaign literally in the next a couple of minutes, if that's really what your need is. So it's all automated, and now you have the opportunity where you have self-serve programmatic platforms, and then you have the serviced programmatic platforms. So with the help of the self-serve programmatic platforms, you can literally launch a campaign just by yourself, loading up your creatives, loading up your targeting, and launching these campaigns just by yourself. So a huge shift when it comes to traditional versus programmatic. Some interesting stats here for people that are interested, that are number junkies. So, I mean, you're looking at programmatic steadily increasing from 2016. eMarketer has this amazing research and data that's available for programmatic spend. So when we're looking at spend specific to the US industry, we're looking at the spends going from around 25 billion all the way up to almost $81 billion in next year. So there's a huge increase of programmatic that's essentially taken place. And with COVID, eMarketer is obviously going to be coming up with latest data, but we suspect that it's only gone up because a lot of the traditional ad spend that would have been spent in areas like trade shows or venues that are more traditional in nature, now these marketing dollars are all gravitating towards digital, and within digital, a lot of these dollars are gravitating towards programmatic. So I would suspect that 81 is going to be a lot higher when the final statistic for 2020 and the projections for 2021 come about. It's definitely going to be a lot higher. So there's an interesting stat as far as trading models that organizations are currently utilizing, because you can utilize different trading models. You can either use DSPs, you can use an agency to manage your programmatic advertising, you can do it in-house, you can outsource it. There's a lot of different ways to do programmatic. And I mean, no surprise, we've seen that the most or the majority of the advertisers are utilizing agencies to do programmatic. They're not that self-sufficient when it comes to programmatic advertising, and it makes sense because the agencies have access to a lot more areas or avenues as opposed to you handling an operation in-house. And then you also have a certain portion of the advertisers that are doing a mixed model, where they're utilizing a combination of agency as well as in-house operations as well. So it's a combination of mixed models, also fairly popular, but what we've seen is that a lot of the times it's really agencies that are being utilized by advertisers for programmatic advertising. We want to talk about some of the different sophistication aspects when it comes to programmatic. You could really target anything and everything as far as programmatic is concerned. So if you're looking at demographic data, you could be utilizing things like education level, gender, of course, age, household income that Peter mentioned, geolocations, like the sky's the limits. There's a ton of demographic targeting that you could be doing. You could be targeting by CRM data if you have mailing list subscribers, and if you have a list that's classified into different buckets, whether it's an awareness list that you have, it's an existing customer list that you have, it's a lookalike audience list that you want to go after. From your CRM data standpoint, there's again a ton of ways that you could be potentially targeting people. Then on the web analytics side, if you want to target people based on your analytics data, whether it's visitors that are bouncing on your website, for e-commerce sites, if it's abandoned carts and these types of visitors that you want to target based on time on site. So there's all these different classifications and lists that can be created, and programmatic advertising can be utilized very successfully to target people utilizing analytics data. And then going into some of the other benefits, if you're looking at interest level targeting, targeting can be very successfully done based on the various different interest levels, outdoor enthusiasts, aspiring chefs, etc. Sorry guys, my dog's going crazy. One of the perks of working from home. And then you also have social. So you have like channel subscribers, watched YouTube videos or certain videos, or had like advertising that was done for your subscribers or your subscriber characteristics, you could potentially be targeting people based on your YouTube visitors. And YouTube is just one example. You could be looking at your social spectrum broad base and then doing targeting based on that. So as far as the power of programmatic is concerned, there's a ton of opportunity when it comes to programmatic. Some of the benefits, continuing on the benefits of programmatic, you can find your audience across multiple channels. And one of the best things is that you're only paying for an ad impressions that's generated by your target audience. So that's another benefit that you have for programmatic. You're only paying for your ad impression. You're not necessarily paying for fixed price inventory buys, which was also the case with traditional media buying. You can optimize your campaign goals in real time. There's no RFPs, there's no paperwork that's essentially involved. So if you want to change your media plan, you can literally do it on the fly. You want to pause spends, you want to increase spends, you want to ramp down, ramp up spends, everything's all happening in a very sort of a dynamic environment. So that's another huge benefit as far as programmatic is concerned. And then we're looking at some of the other benefits. We're looking at things like, if we keep going, Peter, like, yeah, as far as transparency of the overall process is concerned, one of the biggest challenges was that the old process wasn't as transparent. And in this instance now, with the benefit of programmatic advertising, there's a huge element of transparency that's built in. So you know what your cost per impression is, what you're actually paying, and you have more control over it. Over this cost, this overall price that you're paying for that impression. Prices have definitely gotten very competitive over the course of the past few years, just because there's more bidding that's taking place, there's more aggressive bidding that's taking place, and there's more inventory that's opened up across the board with so many publishers entering the fray and more inventory essentially being available. So pricing's gotten very competitive, which is obviously good news for the advertisers. I think we've talked about the benefits of programmatic quite extensively. So this particular slide just reiterates the benefits of programmatic, and not to scare anybody, but the landscape for programmatic can be pretty complex. Luma had come up with a pretty interesting stack, and they've done stacks in various different verticals, but they'd done a bit of a stack around just to kind of take a crack at programmatic and to try and understand as to what are the different players. And you can see there's the agency side, there's the ad server side, there's the trading desk side, DSPs, exchanges, ad networks. I mean, it's pretty crazy out there when it comes to programmatic. So it's no surprise that you have about 43% of the advertisers that are using agencies or dealing with agencies, just because it is a pretty complex place out there with programmatic. There's just so many options out there. So you really want to be working with agencies that understand your vertical, that understand your needs, that understand your goals. And then based on all of these different choices that are available in this programmatic tech stack, they really choose the best of breed options for you in order to help you achieve your goals. So there is something interesting that we wanted to offer the AMA members, the ones that are tuned into this webinar, and also the ones that potentially missed out. But there's an interesting opportunity where typically when we do Google display advertising, we use Google DV360, which is Google's programmatic platform. You have to have a certain minimum in order to get access to Google's DV360, which is a lot more powerful than just doing Google's display advertising through Google AdWords. And there's a certain minimum. The minimums usually start at 10,000 and up, but because at WSI we have the buying power, so in our corporate account we're essentially crossing this threshold much higher. So what we like to offer all the AMA members is the fact that there's no minimums for you guys. So if there's any interest from the advertisers that are interested in doing any sort of programmatic advertising, there is no minimums as far as the advertising is concerned, because everything's going to be run through our DV360 corporate account. It's a huge benefit that we wanted to bring out to the AMA members. So even if you have really small budgets, you did want to test out programmatic and you're curious about it, this is a great, terrific opportunity for you guys to really test out programmatic and get a sense of it. Peter, did you want to add something to that?
No, well, Vineesh, what is it if you go direct?
Yeah.
To DB3, Google 360's platform or Centro or Simply or any of these programmatic platforms, what are the minimums? What do they look like?
It really depends on the platforms. The more sophisticated they are, the higher the minimum. So for example, for DV360, you're looking at a 10K minimum investment. And that's when you get
a year?
No, it's per campaign, right? So like, so so it's like you have to have a 10K investment per month. Correct. That can be spread over like different campaigns, but you have to have a 10K a month investment.
Right. So multiple campaigns, but you got to be spending 10K a month.
That's right.
On the platform.
Yep. And then Simply, Simplify, amazing for geofencing type of campaigns. They also have a minimum, which is around the same range. So you can't really directly work with them. You have to work through an agency that has, bulk inventory available that can then take your inventory and then work with Simply.
Right.
So it's different.
WSI, obviously we work with you, Vineesh. We also work with another one called Centro.
Yep.
But I partner with Vineesh, and it's more on the DB3. I just keep saying that Google 360 platform.
Yep.
So that's an incredible deal at $10,000, and you're saying that you don't have to hit that minimum for an individual company that wanted to run programmatic.
Yeah, especially SMBs right now in the post-COVID environment, they just have different tactics that they're running. Even if it's $1,000 or a couple of $1,000 that you want to push at programmatic, is a really good opportunity to test out the power of DV360.
So why don't we run that last Menti question, which I'll do right now. Boom. So this is a rank one. What features interest you most about programmatic ads? The efficiency, measurement in real time, the increased reach by that demographic, transparency, variety of channels. So if you go to your Menti app and if you bring it up, if you missed it, there's that numbers up there on the top. And we can start to see, let's get a feel of what people got out of it. Yeah, I think that's one of the measurement in real time, being able to change stuff in real time and reacting. Efficiency, yeah, I'd imagine instead of going to every single platform, Facebook and maybe you're on, Facebook and Instagram kind of work together, but if you were doing Twitter and LinkedIn and the Google Ads platform and display. Oh wait, we got only 5. We still have 17 people on the call. We can increase that. Again, all this data is anonymous. We don't collect any of this data. It's just for the people that are on the call and kind of to get us a feel of kind of what you're getting out of it. Okay, and now I want to move to, I believe the next slide is any questions that people have. Oh, I'm sorry, don't want to forget. If you like to have a conversation with us, and that's just a conversation, there's not a sales call, it's basically to learn more. Basically it's a complimentary discovery call where I'll sit down with you and learn if programmatic would be a fit for your individual company situation. You can go to the Menti app and include your contact information. It's basically, name and email would be fine, or name, email, and phone number. So I can set up a call with you and have a meeting, basically a 30-minute conversation. I've done this in the past, and people have gotten a great deal out of it from both sides.
Peter, I just want to jump in while we're waiting for questions, and maybe we can take the slides down if you guys are done so people can pop on camera and ask them in real time. Just want to thank everyone again for coming and mention that you'll look in the chat and see that Brad McCormick, our VP of Social, put in a complimentary code for you to attend our fireside chat with the chairman of Dunkin' Donuts for free as a courtesy for attending this webinar. That'll be on October 22nd at 6 p.m. It's going to be a lot of fun, really intimate conversation with obviously a big time brand and leader. So use the code AMA Social. It's right in the chat feature if you want to get a complimentary ticket to that event.
So I just put up your event slides, Megan.
Yep, absolutely. And I guess, well, then it's worth mentioning once again, also, if you're interested in networking and meeting with a amazing local CMO, Scott Braun of Drizzly, we are also having a networking event on the 15th. So please stop by one or both of those events. We'd love to see you there. And thank you, Vineesh and Peter, for an amazing program. I think I certainly learned a lot and eager to hear what questions we have from the audience.
Awesome.
Yeah, we had one question. Yeah, you mentioned that it is cost per, hold on one second. You mentioned that it was cost per impressions. So it's not cost per click, or is that something that you set up?
Yeah, so programmatic can be done in a variety of ways, but it's basically impressions-based costs that we are looking at. But you can do CPC-based programmatic advertising as well. There's different models, Peter, depending on the platform and the agency, the way that they've set up their operations. Yeah. Yeah, there's some.
So there's a good question here. Won't programmatic results be tampered by the cookie crumble?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, Michelle. And I'm glad that you brought this to the audience's attention. Of course, with the advent of so much of focus on privacy with GDPR kicking in and a lot of the states in the US also incorporating their own privacy laws, programmatic right now is very, very cookie based and cookie dependent because a lot of the targeting is really dependent on the visitor systems being cookied and then the impressions being served based on the identifiers that have been established for these individual visitors. It's definitely going to have an impact, and this is something that the programmatic industry is quite concerned and worried about. But I think just like anything, there's going to be an evolution, Michelle, and what's going to happen is that there's a certain level of adaptation that's going to happen. Whether this adaptation is at the contextual level, where as opposed to going direct one-to-one, being very personalized, the programmatic industry is probably going to shift to a more sort of like a contextual relevancy-based type of advertising. That's one area that programmatic can gravitate towards. The other area that programmatic could also go towards is, direct customer data. So right now, customer data is dependent on this cookied interaction that's happening. There could be a situation where they go into direct customer data acquisition so that they own the data with proper consent, of course, and then their targeting is based on this data that they own. So there's lesser reliance on cookies. But just as with everything, I'm pretty sure, Michelle, that this is an area of innovation, and the technology is going to come about that's going to lower the dependency around cookie-based advertising. But you touched upon a pretty sensitive and a very interesting topic for programmatic, the programmatic industry as a whole. It is a concern. Absolutely.
We have one other question I think is really good from Rosalie Kennedy. With programmatic, you can't control exactly where the ad will show up. It's determined by the audience you're targeting, right?
No, you can actually control websites as well. So like, for example, in DV360, if you want to do advertising and there are certain sites that you want your ad to be displayed on, you can definitely control that. You could eliminate sites that you don't want your ad to be displayed on. So what happens is that you can download reports from the platform that showcase all of the websites where your ad was served, where you were getting impressions from, and then you can set up site exclusion targeting, so you can exclude sites that you don't want to be a part of that list. So you can do site level targeting as well.
And so you mentioned a lot about sites, but programmatic goes beyond just a website.
Yeah,
some of the platforms can can dip into
social,
display
yeah.
in audio, and even over the top, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's different ways. Programmatic sort of like the technology, and then as far as the inventory is concerned, there's tons of inventory across tons of different mediums and tons of different platforms. That's right.
Right. So I can use programmatic to do ads on Pandora and Spotify,
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
audio platforms like that,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah,
There's
so it sounds
exchanges in place strictly to control that inventory. Absolutely.
right. So that's all the questions I have, and we're at the top of the hour. Meg, do you have anything?
Oh, that's it. Thanks again, guys, and we hope to see our audience at future AMA Boston events. And I know we'll be hearing from Vineesh and Peter again in the future. So, Helen, any other programmatic notes, or Paul?
No, we're all set. Thank you so much again. Wonderful webinars as always. So we look forward for the next one, Vineesh and Peter.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us.
trying to educate the marketers of the greater Boston area.
All right, have a good afternoon, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.